All right, cool.
I would have worn my Sunday best. Um, so hi, my name is Trevor Glass. I got contacted out of the blue. It would be several weeks ago now that Chad, in fact, one of Chad's friends, Sean, got in touch with me. I started working out with Sean, who's a business psychologist. For a little while, and I was going to become part of their business as in sort of a sales capacity, but then I decided that it wasn't quite where I wanted to direct my life, so I moved on. But Sean put me in touch with Chad a few weeks ago, and Chad
months ago we've been talking
months ago, yeah. And we've had several conversations since, just about the selling process. Um, I have I have been doing sales trainings for a very, very long time, and it's not what I do for a living anymore. I'm in IT, but I've had a couple of tech startups that have gone global, and certainly selling was a huge part of what I did. So let me tell you a little bit about myself first before we jump into it. And then what I'd like to do in this session is I'd like to get to know everyone a little bit more and what your roles are in the organization, and specifically how you guys go about your current selling process. Now, I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. I remember when I was just a teenager just out of school, and I applied for a job at a gym to sell gym memberships. And I remember going in, and you guys have probably heard the old "sell me this pen" story. I don't know if you've ever heard the old "sell me the pen," but I remember walking in as a teenager, an 18-year-old or something, and I remember the gym instructor, or the person that owned the gym, the recruitment person, said to me, have you got any sales experience? And I said, no, but anyone can sell. And they said, well, sell me this pen. And I remember I literally just went, okay, so I've got this pen, and it's got black ink, and it's really nice and comfortable to hold, and it writes really nicely. Would you like to buy a pen? And I didn't get the job. So, but I'm not going to put anyone on the spot like that here, because I think it's really irrelevant where you're at right now. What I would like to do, though, I'm very curious as to how you guys go about your business. That is really important to me. I just want to know what it is that you sell, how you go about selling it at the moment. What sort of reactions are you getting from clients, and how do you feel about selling? Because that's a really key one. As I mentioned, I've had two tech startups. I've actually had businesses since I was about 10 years old. So I've been really a serial entrepreneur all my life. And as a result of that, because I've had small businesses up until the bigger ones sort of took off, I've always had a need to sell, and I've always thought that I was quite a reasonable salesperson. So, but it was basically around when I started my second tech startup. I found that I was repeating the same old pattern over and over again. I would expend a lot of energy getting to a point where I really thought someone would want to buy. And I believed in our product so much. Like I literally, I dreamt about it at night. I woke up in the morning. I couldn't wait to get to work. I loved the product that we were developing. I loved it. I believed it was the best product on the market and that no one could compete with us. But our sales calls that we were doing were really hit and miss. And so when I had my first tech startup, I'd had no formal sales training. We were growing. There's no doubt we were growing very linearly. There was no like explosion of business. We were just taking sort of one client at a time and growing, but we didn't have that like most of our deals, we weren't closing. We would do all the work, but then we wouldn't close them at the end. And then I started a second a tech startup. I sold the first one and started another one. And this time I had a bit more budget, and I hired a professional salesperson. Now, this person had sold cars for Jaguar and Land Rover and those sorts of things. And then he went into software and started selling software. And this guy knew everything about sales. He'd set up a CRM system for us to have a sales pipeline, and he had no problem picking up the phone and harassing someone until they eventually would give him an appointment. Like there was no that wouldn't, that he just didn't take no for an answer. He just kept going and going and going. But the thing was, he started attending a few of our demonstrations, our sales demonstrations. And he kept saying to me, there's a better way to sell. And I was like, I've been doing this for so long. I know how to stand up. I know more about the product than anyone else. Don't come into my business and tell me how to sell. Like I've been doing this for so long. But when he did a presentation, it wasn't remarkably different from what I did. But when he did a presentation, he closed the deal and I didn't. And eventually I started saying, how is this guy doing it? Because, it's kind of like a chef. If I give you a bunch of ingredients and I put them in front of you, and I give Jamie Oliver exactly the same ingredients, I can absolutely 100% guarantee he's going to make the most amazing meal, and all of us will probably make an average meal, because it's a technique. It's a technique. Anybody can learn sales. Absolutely anybody can learn to sell. One of the biggest problems is that we fear selling, because we fear the process of rejection. And it's even more than just rejection. I'll get into that a little bit later. So we have this stumbling block right up front. We're so scared of getting a no that we prevent ourselves from getting a yes. I'm not here to try and convince everybody that you're going to close every deal. It's not going to happen. However, the techniques I'm going to show you are so easy. There's only 5 steps, only 5. And if you follow these 5 steps, I absolutely 100% guarantee you'll close more deals. And you'll become more valuable to your employer, and you'll become more employable in the future. And there's just so many advantages. Your business will just grow. It'll flourish. It'll be more fun to close deals. You'll enjoy the process more. So, and I'll go through the reasons why this is such an important training for you as we go through. So just getting back, talking about my second business, and then this guy came in and he said to us that we need to change the way that we're selling. And so he started showing us this 5-step sales process, and I became so incredibly invested and interested in it, because I noticed a quantifiable difference in the way that I was actually selling. Because the biggest thing that you're going to learn out of this entire course is that a salesperson has got 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's unbelievable how powerful it is when people sell to themselves. Just by show of hands, who likes being sold to? Does anyone like being sold to? Does anyone like it when you're sitting at home and a telemarketer calls you and says, oh, we've got a deal, and it drives us batty, right? So why do we think that that's going to work for us and the business that we're so passionate about? But who likes to buy stuff? All of us like to buy stuff. And you're in a business that really people are very, very emotionally invested in the services that you offer, right? So you actually have, and I'm talking specifically about your business, you have an absolute golden egg that you're selling, because people are emotionally invested to want to buy what you're offering. So all we need to do is get them to want to buy rather than get you to want to sell. And the way that you do that is you listen rather than talk. And I'm going to show you what you need to listen for and what questions to ask. Okay, but that is later. And I still want to build up to get there, and I still want to understand exactly how you go about your process at the moment. So I've studied dozens of sales courses. I've also studied a master's in business psychology. I didn't finish the entire master's course. I did the modules that I felt were important for me. And two of the courses that I did as part of that was the psychology of sales and the psychology of marketing. And I found that that was incredibly useful. To keep it simple, I'm not going to go through all of that content with you, but I can say this. The fear that we have when we're making a sales call, I don't believe you guys are telemarketing, but we'll get to that in a sec. But the fear that we have, or that may come up when we're doing a sales call, is not only rejection. What psychologists have actually found is that we, at a psychological level, when we're asking people to buy our product, at a deep subconscious level, we have exactly the same emotional triggers going off as if we were asking a friend to lend us money. And it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. We are giving them a product that's in service of them. If you don't believe that you are selling a product that is going to help the lives of people, don't sell it. Literally don't sell it, because what value are you offering to somebody if you're not selling a product that is genuinely going to make a difference in their life? So it's not the same thing, but from a psychological perspective, your mind and deep unconscious mind actually thinks it's the same thing because you're asking someone for money. Now, I'm going to show you how to get through that. And all you need to do is actually put the entire selling process back on the buyer. We no longer, from today onwards, we're no longer going to sell to people. All that we're going to do is assist them in wanting to buy. That's all we're going to do. We're not going to sell to anyone anymore. Okay. If you sell to people, it puts them off, they walk away, and they'll go and find someone that will assist them in buying. Okay. So we're going to change that. And don't worry if it all sounds like all too airy fairy, don't worry. It will all make sense. And I can guarantee you by the end of next week, we're going to cover this off over 3 training sessions over the next week, and then we'll have a follow-up session the following week. Within the next 3 sales trainings, I can absolutely guarantee you by the end of next week, Thursday night, you guys are going to look at selling in a totally different way. And you won't be able to unsee it. It'll be like riding a bike. It'll literally, you'll just go, oh, I can't believe how easy this is compared to the way we used to do it. I've also been paid. I don't do it for a living anymore, but I at one stage I was paid in excess of $20,000 a day to do sales trainings for organizations, and I was flown all over the world in order to do those sales trainings. So believe me, you're in safe hands. I've done a lot of research on the subject, and the best part about it is you only have to learn 5 steps. That's all it is. And everything else that I do in the sales training is just literally layering in those 5 steps so that you can understand what those 5 steps are and really get the reasoning behind why you do it. Okay? When you know how to sell, you can sell anything, absolutely anything. That's why people that sell Land Rovers get jobs to sell software and get jobs to sell houses, because once you know the technique, it's just like going to university and understanding, and it's a very sought after skill to have. Not only in business, but just in your personal life. We always having to sell ourselves. We're always having to. It'll help with your confidence. It'll help with your personal interactions. It's a really useful skill to have. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. As I said, I've had this history where I didn't know how to sell, and it was so frustrating for me. It was incredibly frustrating. When you do all that work to get to a point where you think you've got the deal, and then they turn their back on you and go somewhere else. There is nothing more frustrating than that. Like, if you haven't done the work and someone knocks on your door and says no, that's different to when you've done all the work, but we want to close all of those. All right. If somebody knocks on your door, they only knock on your door because there's a reason why they knock on your door. They are interested in the services that you sell. Okay. Right. So the next thing I want to do is I just want to run around and ask you guys a few questions, if that's okay. I'm doing this for the benefit of, number one, understanding more about your business. I'm going to give you the same course no matter what, but I want to understand more about your business. What are your interactions? Where do you meet your clients? Are you getting people calling in? Is it telemarketing? Are you attending conferences? Is it word of mouth? References from word of mouth? Are people Googling and searching for your business? How are you actually getting those leads? That's the one thing I want to know, and I'll come back to these. I also want to know not only where you sell it and what you sell, but who's doing the selling within the business. So is everybody selling? Is it mostly Chad? Like, who is it that's actually your main salespeople, and who are the backup people that are we all selling all the time? All of us are selling all the time. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But I just want to bring into your awareness that all of us can sell. And that's the very, very big thing. So why don't you kick off by first of all telling me a bit about the product lines that you sell. Now, I've already heard it from Chad, so can I hear it from someone else? Bronwyn.
Why'd you pick me?
How about you start off and give me a couple, and then I'll move on to someone else.
Do you mean in the sense of like intensive therapy?
What products do you sell? What do you sell?
I sell therapy.
Therapy? What sort of therapy do you sell?
Intensive therapy, sorry. 5 days a
Okay,
week.
so what does that involve?
5 days a week, 3 weeks at a time, 3-hour sessions, using a bunch of different methodologies to try and help each individual kid to develop a program that'll be specific to them to help increase their strength and mobility, whatever it may be that they need.
Okay, so what sort of who's your client? And obviously you've got children, they've got parents. I'm assuming the parents are your client.
Yeah,
good.
More selling to the parent than the child.
Of course. And how are you touching base with those parents? How are you getting that initial contact?
So everything that I get usually comes in from like inquiry emails through the website, and Jackie or Chad will pass them on to me, and then I'll call them.
Okay.
And chat and sell and try and organize an initial assessment, and then from the initial assessment try to get them to book in for intensives.
Okay. All right. And how do you go about that? Okay, let's have someone else.
I'm the only other therapist.
Okay. All right. Well,
Bronwyn and I are the therapists.
Thank you, Bronwyn.
Bronwyn and I are the therapists that do the therapy, and we kind of sell the therapy.
Yep.
And then Anjali sells equipment, wheelchairs, and other things. And then Jackie is our kind of admin person who, answers the phone and answers the emails.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so the same as what Bronwyn said, from my perspective, the same as what Bronwyn said. You get families who, they either they call or email. They're probably they might be referred by a friend, in which case they still come through email or phone, or we meet them at an expo or something like that. So Usually it's inquiries where it's inbound, they're coming to us, or we meet them at an expo. And the idea is to try and kind of speak to them on the phone. And then the second stage is to get them into the clinic to assess the kid. And then after that, it's to then have them kind of agree to some sort of therapy.
Okay. When they come in for the initial assessment, do you charge for that, or is that a free assessment?
We do charge for it.
Good.
The
Good.
phone
That's
calls,
exactly what I was hoping.
phone calls we don't charge for. The phone calls can be like an hour.
Yeah.
But when they come into the clinic, we do charge for it because it's just standard practice within the industry.
Good.
We started doing it when we realized that sometimes people don't purchase or they don't do the therapy. So it was like, okay, we're going to start charging for this to try and weed out people who are maybe not as interested.
That's really good. That's really good. That's certainly one of the points I was definitely going to make. You know, one of the organizations that I worked for, they found that they weren't getting the commitment that they wanted from. They do a whole bunch of work for nothing to get to a point. And you know, preparing quotations and proposals and that sort of thing takes a lot of labor, and they were finding they were getting nothing for it. So I went in after joining this organization and helping them. I went to a couple of sales calls with them, and I got commitment. I mean, we're talking $1 million+ deals at least, but getting them just literally to pay $10,000 at that stage, or for a big deal, right? But paying $10,000 for us to write a proposal had never been done in the organization. And that's a really, really important step, which I'll bring up later on in the sales training, is getting that initial commitment. Very, very important. Awesome. Tell me what happens. So when you receive an email, do you respond to the email or do you give them a phone call?
If it's a new assessment, I phone call. If it's someone I've not met before, I will usually call them because you usually don't get your point across very well in an email.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a phone call is very, very important.
If we have their phone number,
yeah, true.
Jackie, if they email, usually they'll email Jackie because she has the inquiry email, so to speak, and then she will email them back and try and kind of. Jackie, do you want to share what you do?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I am the first point of contact if it's a new one. I will try to create a connection, ask more details about the child if there's no information about it at the first place, and then basically ask for address and phone number, mainly because making sure as well if they're near one of our clinics, they would be happy or will be invited to have an face-to-face assessment in any of our clinics. But if not, then the phone conversation would be provided either via Bronwyn or chat.
Okay. And how many of those end up being in person versus over the phone? Roughly. Are we talking?
Do you mean the assessments or
the assessments? Yeah.
Oh, we don't do. I won't see anybody unless I have a conversation with them first.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because I don't want to waste my time if the kid or if the person turns up and they're not the type of client we work with.
Yeah. Okay. Now tell me what happens from your perspective if you really just think about the feelings that are going on inside of you while you're doing the sales call. What are you thinking? What's happening for you?
Let me go first because I'll be the first to say that I have a different style than Bronwyn and others, and it's kind of, but it's what's got me here. You know, I started when I was a kid by literally I'd hire my next door neighbor's lawnmower for $5, and then I would walk around the street and I would knock on every single one of my neighbor's doors going, "Do you want your lawn mowed?" And I'd charge them, and then I'd give him $5. And so I just got used to. You can mute your thing if you want, so that.
Oh no, that's right. I accidentally pressed a button on my phone. I've moved it further away now.
So I used to do that, lawn mowing and like washing people's cars. I was doing that from the
I
edge.
did the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my style just became, I'm very passionate about what I'm doing.
Hmm.
And it's almost like and I always wanted to do sales training, but everybody who was mentoring and guiding me said, don't worry about that, just express your passion.
No.
And what it's become is I get feedback from everybody you see on the screen there going, Chad, you're too forceful. And I've had people like, and so I'm really passionate about it, but I really want to help and I really want to understand what's going on for them. But there's something that I do that turns a lot of people off.
Okay.
Do
you know what that is?
You could
It
probably
feels like a guilt trip.
probably
It
comes
feels like a guilt trip. It feels like they're not doing enough. It feels like they will never be good enough because the passion that Chad pushes out seems like it's too hard to meet his high expectations is the feedback I get.
I think you've nailed it, Bronwyn. It's a thing of, instead of me meeting them where they're at, I expect them
want to push for more.
Well, I expect them to kind of turn up to where I'm at, which is so much higher than where they are that it freaks them out. And so some people are up for it, but some people it doesn't work for them. And so I need to learn how to be more gentle and just more patient.
If you were to pick it, what would you need to do to change?
Accept that what we do may not be for them, and that's okay. And the other one would be, they don't have to do everything that I think would be good for them. If they did just a little something, they would be better off, and it would make the kid improve a bit and then feel a bit better, and that's okay.
Okay. Another question. So you obviously do an assessment with the child. So you ask the children a lot of questions. How much do you...
The parent, you ask the parent. Kids, most of our kids don't talk.
Oh, really? Okay. 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 All right.
You don't have the conversation with a 6-month-old that really goes that far.
Sure.
But some kids, we do occasionally have kids that will talk, but usually it's medical histories from the parents and asking them what they've done at other clinics and that sort of stuff.
In the lead up to assessing the child, where the child comes in, how in the sales process specifically, how much do you talk and how much do you allow the parent to talk?
I word vomit a lot. I just want to give them all the information that I can give them, and I ask questions as I go, because I think one of the main questions I ask is like, what do you want? What are you looking for? And what have you already tried? But then it's a thing of, this is what and I think I look at it as I'm selling myself, and that sounds wrong, but selling what I can give, and what the company can give. So for me, it's like, this is what I have to offer. Do you have any questions? Do you want to, do you want what I have to offer? That's probably more my sales style.
Do you know, that's exactly what I used to do. I'll tell you what I used to do. I used to set up a demo. I'd have a team that would get leads, and I'm talking about software sales here. But what we'd do is we'd get a firm lead, and then I would go into a presentation and I would stand up and I'd say, okay, so this is what our product does, and these are the reasons, these are the benefits why you need to do it. Thank you very much. And then I'd leave. And the other guy, he'd go in and I would just get so... initially, I couldn't stand it, because we've got a 1 hour time slot and we're 40 minutes in and he hasn't even got up and done a demo yet. And then he'd close the deal. And I never understood how, and he'd never show the whole system either. He'd just show little parts of it, and that's it. And he'd close the deal every time. And that's what I'm going to get you guys to do. Because I like to use this example of if somebody goes into a car yard, or they want to buy a new car, and they go in and they say to the salesman, want to buy a new car, and the salesman goes, have I got the car for you? This car over here, 250 kilowatts, 0 to 100, 3 seconds, 5-year warranty. Right now, we're doing it at a special rate, 15% off, drive away right now. It's got all the mod cons, all the media, blah, blah. And they go, oh, very nice car. Okay. And then we'll think about it. And then they go to the next car yard, and the salesman says to them, what are you looking for in a car? And they go, well, we've got a new family, and we need an SUV type car, and we really like the color blue, but it's got to have all these safety mechanisms. And he goes, well, I've got an SUV that's got all the safety because of the clip-ins, whatever those things are called, and we've got it in blue. You can drive it away today, and he gets the sale. A lot of the time we can oversell. We can actually give them information. The more information we give someone, the more they have to filter out what information they actually require. Because I can guarantee you, if you're talking to them for 20 minutes, there's probably only about 3 minutes of stuff that's really important to them. And the rest is stuff they have to process. So what we want to do is we only want to give them the multiple choice options that they want, so that you tick every box. You don't have to give them everything. Okay.
I'm probably similar to that, but then screw up at the end.
Okay.
So when somebody comes into me, I kind of go, okay, and I get a bit of paper out, and I say, and my inquiries go for about an hour and a half usually. And I'm like, okay, so tell me the story. And I listen to them and I write everything down. And I'm like, and then after all that, they talk about, they went here, they went there, and the whole way along, what I'm kind of doing is I'm looking for what's physiologically going on for them. What I probably need to be looking at is like, what are their pain points, or what are the things that they need help with? Like, what's the job
Absolutely.
they need done?
Absolutely.
I haven't done that in the past. But then once I've done that and I listen and I observe the kid and everything else, then after maybe 45 minutes or so, then I'll get on the floor, start playing with the kid, feel them, everything else. Then after that, I've got all this information of this whole kid's whole history, the family's history, all this information, and I know the kid physiologically and everything else. Then I bombard them with so much information, it probably freaks them out. And probably, and it's not like I'm giving them, as you said before, like 1 or 2, what are the key things that they need? I'm like throwing everything at them. And as what Bronwyn said, it probably makes them feel like if they're not doing all of that, then they're bad parents. And sometimes I know I can end up there, because there have been times where parents have come in literally saying, when can we start? And they've left going, let us think about it.
And you know what the let's think about it means, right?
Yeah. Or the one I got the other day was, let me go and talk to my husband.
Yeah. And then you don't hear from them again.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things
keep going. Anjali's got an interesting perspective. She's laughing at me. Stuff you, Anjali. Anjali's actually a parent, and she's a client of, or was a client of ours for many years up in Sydney. And we don't travel to Sydney anymore, so unfortunately we can't help her daughter. But Anjali does equipment with us, so it might be interesting from her perspective, from a parent's perspective. She's been through this sort of stuff heaps of times. Anjali, do you want to share?
So I think as a parent looking for therapy for my daughter, when I first started, like when I met Chad when my daughter was 3 years old, she's 12 now. So that was like nearly 9 years ago. At that time, the intensive therapy that Chad and Bronwyn do was quite new to Australia. And we were only doing therapy at the hospital once a week or once a fortnight, which is like an hour. But we heard about the intensive therapy over, from other people and from a TV section and everything. And that's when we decided that this is appropriate for my daughter, and then went and found Chad. And so we'd already made up our mind. So it's not like a sale that Chad had to do to us. But we did go for, Chad, your information session. And at the information session, there was like a presentation. There were like, I don't know, a booklet or something. And that was probably too much.
Yeah. Okay. So let me
But
ask
because
you a
we
question.
were wanting to do it, so, and no one else was offering it, so then we had to go with Chad.
So Anjali, let me ask you a question. How much information would have been enough? What did you need to know?
I think he went quite a bit into like he did do some case studies where you did show some clients and some improvements. But I think
Was that important to you?
yes, because
Yes. Awesome.
it's intensive therapy. So where we are doing 1 hour a week, we end up doing 15 hours a week, and then you can imagine the payment.
Yeah.
So for all that money that you have to pay, it had to be worth it, right? So you had to see the results.
And you would have paid out of pocket back in those days.
We paid out of pocket, yeah. It was like pay for therapy or go to India, and we had to like sacrifice holidays and families and everything for Chad.
Yeah.
Back in those days, I was literally selling into what you would deem kind of like a cold market. Like people had just heard about it, but nobody knew about it. So we used to do presentations, and we had booklets, and we before and after videos. Now people find us because of either like they're referred, or we meet them in an expo. They know what it is. And so, Anjali, do you remember what it was like the first time you came and saw me for an assessment? You would have brought Sahir in with Saurabh, and you would have sat down, and we would have gone through kind of what her situation was. Do you remember what that was like?
But before we go there, I also wanted to say that because we already knew that we wanted to do the intensive, like we already had researched it and we knew the benefits and everything, you did kind of force us to come for that information, session, which we didn't need to go for. We had to like find, a babysitter for all our kids and get there on time and go through the whole thing, even though we were like a yes parent. We had to.
So if you've got a notepad right now, you probably want to write information, too much information, and put a big cross through it, because that's a massive big lesson. I did exactly the same thing, Chad. Because we're passionate about what we do, I literally would go in. People used to say to me when I did my presentations, I'd be like a jack in a box, like bouncing around and telling them how amazing our product was. If I tell you that this is going to be the most amazing sales training ever, do you believe me? No. Why? Because it's coming from me. I would say that, right? So never, ever do it. Never, ever tell people this is the best thing you're ever going to do. No one will ever believe you. In fact, you use words like to be honest. Never do the to be honest, because people are like, well, you're not always honest. All these sorts of things, they little subtle things, but the biggest thing is information overload. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is information overload. And also, I'm very, very interested, Chad. I know you're very, very passionate about the product that you sell, but what happens at the point that you start being pushy? What is the emotion that you're feeling? That's very, very important to know, because you need to understand when that trigger comes up for you. You need to be like, oh, I'm feeling this right now. It might be, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It might be a fear of not closing the deal, a fear of It might be that you're scared about something. It may just be that you just want to give them more information.
Three things.
What is it that's coming up? Because
Certainly.
something coming up that's triggering something that is getting a response, and we need to be aware of that.
Yep, and I've thought about this a lot over time, and I'll be completely honest, because both either any of you guys might feel one or two of these things, and also future people who are watching this might feel something. Over the years, there have been times where literally it was like, if this kid doesn't do the therapy, I'm not going to be able to pay our staff's wages next month.
Yeah.
Right. And so there have been times where we've been absolutely on the line where there was no money anywhere else. And so I need them to say, yes, they will do therapy with us next week so we can eat.
Yep. 100. And I totally understand that. I've been in exactly the same situation.
Yep.
There's a lot of responsibility in that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of responsibility in that. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was as recent as just before COVID, 1999. We were there for a period of time.
Yeah. And that's very typical.
Yep.
All of us go through it.
Yeah. And you learn from it as well.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a bad place to be. It's a learning place to be. So there was that. The other one is desperate to help the kid, because I know, not being arrogant or anything like that, but just everybody else does 1 hour a week and stuff like that. It's like, and for how long we've been around for, it's like, yeah, pretty sure that we could probably help you more than others can. And in your kid, I see this amazing potential, and it would just be a dream to be able to help the kid.
Well, the first one's obviously not something you want to share with the client, that you really need them to sign the deal, because you're going to you're going to get bums on seats. But the second one's actually a very, very good vulnerable thing to share with them, that you actually really care. And so obviously that's something that's coming through in your presentations. But
also got to be careful with, just as you said before, don't tell them this is the best, and don't use, to be honest, this is going to be the best thing available for your child. That's where I tend to mess up. I don't think you need to fear learning or even writing those things down. I'll tell you why. Once I've gone through the 5-step sales process, and if you just keep it in the back of your mind while you're selling, or while you're busy having conversations with people, you won't do those things anymore. You just won't. Because the 5 steps don't allow you to. Yeah. They don't allow you to oversell. And also for future staff, they might be in a situation where if that client comes on board, then all of a sudden they'll have enough clients that they can make like a bonus, so they themselves might be like, oh, if this client, so they could feel that pressure as well. Thirdly, validation. Yeah. So if the client says yes, then it's a form for me of external validation that I'm a good therapist, I'm intelligent enough, I'm whatever it is, loved, needed, if you're concerned, if you want to, if you're insecure or you want people to like you and everything, go into a helping profession where people need your help, right? Because you get, and it can be addictive. It can be like a drug if people, need your assistance, and it can feel wonderful. Well, and there's an element of that as well. The thing about us, Chad, is when you have your own business as well, it's kind of like an artist. You create something out of nothing. And when other people show appreciation for it, it's absolutely validation. I can only imagine what it must be like for a rock star to stand up on stage in front of 60,000 people, screaming their name because they wrote something that's in tune with everybody's, enjoyment, I guess. Yeah. To give you the background of what we do and where we've come from, when we first started doing intensives, the whole concept of it was so foreign. Like, there was 1 hour a week or 1 hour a fortnight was the only thing available. And the concept of an intensive was 1 hour a week for 10 weeks. That was what was done in an intensive model. And when I first started, I was ridiculed, attacked online. people come up to me at conferences and said what I did to kids was cruel, all sorts of stuff. And so, you know, getting to a point now where it's kind of, as you said, creating something from nothing. You know, we've gone out and sourced all these things to try and help as best as we can. And the validation comes from now. It's not common practice, but it's getting pretty close to it. So
awesome. And not only do you want the parent to respect you, but you want, I mean, we all want respect from people that we work with as well, and for them to believe in what we do, right? Yep. Awesome. Anything anyone wants to add to any of that? Thank you, Chad. That was actually quite vulnerable of you. And I can relate to everything that you said. Anything from anyone else?
Anjali.
Yeah, I think like it's quite similar, because when Chad started 9 years ago to sell intensive therapy, so that was something new that had come to Australia. People were not aware. You had to like do the education and everything around it. And it's probably the same as the wheelchair that we are selling, which is, I mean, you can see all the benefits, you understand everything, but people don't get you. So because it's all new, then you've got to like, I feel like we oversell because we don't know how much information to get them. Maybe we are like underestimating their intelligence.
Well, it's not really that.
Not really intelligence, but we underestimate their, you know, like.
I've got a friend of mine. I've got a friend of mine that he's a sailor. He left South Africa like in the 1980s, and he bought himself a yacht, and him and his wife have sailed around the world. They've had 2 children on the boat. They've continued to sail around the world, and the kids are now out of home. They're still sailing. But he's got this saying that I just absolutely love, and you might have heard it before. He said, if you can't tie knots, you know, with a rope, if you can't tie knots, you tie lots. And it's so true. Like, if you don't know how to tie a knot, you tie, you tie, and you tie, and you tie. But if you knew how to tie the right knot, you'd only, I mean, have you seen those sailors? Like sometimes on Facebook, you see them as well, where they do like a loop knot, bang, and the thing's done. And it's like, you can pick up a truck with it, you know? If you can't tie knots, tie lots. And that's what we tend to do in selling. If we don't know how to sell, we oversell. We tend to give too much information and hope, in the hope that they're going to see value in it, rather than us telling them what the value is. And I'm not saying giving them information. I mean, find out what their needs are, and then linking the bits, and only the bits that they're interested in. So you would have had, Anjali, for example, when you came to Chad, you would have had a specific idea of what your expectation was. And if Chad had said to you, and I'm not saying you didn't, I don't know what the conversation was, but if Chad had said to you, what specifically are you looking for? And you say, I want my child to be able to do this. And Chad goes, right, I know exactly how to make your child do that. Not all the other information, just that. Did you care how he did it? No. You just needed evidence that it was going to be done. And the same as the sales training. All that you need to know is that it's going to work at the end of the day. I could stand on my head, I could do a dance, I could do whatever I wanted. At the end of the day, you don't care as long as you walk out of here selling better than you did before. That's all that you're interested in, right?
Yeah, like I can see from Chad's point of view that each child with a disability is different. There's a range. They might be more severe, they might be less severe. So you might, in that first 1 hour that you meet, want to know what exactly is different about this kids.
Absolutely.
But I think, like how you are saying, if you just ask the parent what was the goal, because the parents know the child and the parents know what they want and what would be the next step up or whatever. And they said that instead of you trying to kind of dig out, like, you know, are they spastic and quadriplegic, and can they crawl and can they walk and can they do this and can they do that, instead of just asking them all those questions you just asked, you know, where did you want to get to?
Yeah. have you got anything you'd like to add? Thank you, Anjali. Anything you want to
I
add,
think
Bron?
an important part to add with Angela, I 100% agree. But I think it's also then you need to ask where the kid is at. I've got a lot of parents where I ask them what they want to do, and it's like, oh, I want the kid to walk. The kid can't even hold their head up yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, let's have a chat about this. So sometimes it's like you need to dig a little bit deeper to get the realistic goals or the short-term goals. So I know I sit there and I ask the same question. I'm like, what do you want? Like, what do you want out of this? And a lot of the time it is really long-term goals. And I am very realistic, and I sort of just say, that's a great long-term goal. I said, in the form of, if we just do one intensive to start with, that's not something that's achievable in 3 weeks. What's a nice short-term goal that, they can't do right now that you think would be really helpful? And I think that's when it kind of starts to get more into like where you're at, Angela. It's like, this is what we need right now.
Anjali, as a previous client, would you have been, if your goal was to have your child perfect like everyone else, his children, would you have been satisfied with just knowing that they were going to improve?
I think each parent has a different idea. I mean, I met Chad after seeing, doctors for about 2 years who said that Seher would never do anything. But I wanted full recovery. I mean, Chad knows that as well. And he also tells me it's impossible, or, that I need to go for surgery and stuff like that. But I know in my head it's a long-term goal. And that we do have to obviously start working towards it. And over the course of therapy, we will. My main, what would be important for me is to see a result, no matter how small, at the end of 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So even if you, Bronwyn said, let's just, do the therapy and see where we get, that's the result. And the result then tells me whether it's worth doing another intensive, Yeah. And I think logically as a parent, I wouldn't be expecting that if she can't hold her head up, she'd be walking. But it would be a goal. And, if she did end up holding up her head and sitting instead, I'd be like, okay, 3 weeks, that's a great result. I'll come back again or something.
Yeah.
And Bronwyn, it's thank you for that, Anjali. And it's really, really important, Bronwyn, to be honest. So if somebody has got an unrealistic expectation, I mean, I tried to sell my house when when I came out of my fixed interest term, and literally one of my best friends is a real estate agent, so he doesn't even charge me to sell my house or anything. I'm very, very fortunate. But he came in and I told him what I wanted for the house, and he just said to me, it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And it's very, very important to always sell with integrity. Very, very, very important. You never have to remember your answer if your answer is always the truth. So very, very important. Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes I might be too honest. I literally say, I'm like, take all the information I've given you. If they're still on the fence where I haven't like sold it, I will literally say, if I'm not the therapist for you, I'm not the therapist for you. I'm not going to sit here and try if you don't like me, the kid doesn't like me, and I'm getting nowhere and I'm not getting any results in 3 weeks. I'm not going to keep pushing. I'll try and refer you to somebody else that might be able to help, because I'm not here to take your money if I'm not getting any results.
And that's actually something that I feel very strongly about as well. Some organizations will move paper around, do assessments on kids. It's like, I don't want to have an organization where we just make money. I want to have an organization where we make money by helping. And if we can't help, then we shouldn't take their money.
Yeah.
What I've told Bronwyn frequently is, and it's just like Anjali, it's like, if somebody doesn't need the wheelchair, don't sell it to them. Because what it does is it ends up, you know, go, oh, we got this wheelchair, but it's actually, we don't even need it, you know, or, you know, we have that integrity. I really like that. But also the other thing for Bronwyn and myself and for any future therapists, it's like the parents can't pay us enough for us to work ourselves physically and mentally as hard as we do for us to get money. Because
I also,
it's more about the kids' improvement. That's how Bronwyn and I get paid. That's the payment for our soul.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if the kid really gets nothing, then it's like, don't work with them again, or give them to somebody within our organization that can do weekly stuff with them. Weekly stuff you can go through and doesn't really matter if you're not getting a result. Yeah, it's a placeholder to a degree. You can help, of course, but compared to the intensive, it's less targeted. But anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. So.
yeah,
Thank you.
I was going to say, you know, Chad, how you do the intensive therapies, and Napa does intensive therapies as well. So I'm not sure, Trevor, if you've read much into intensive therapies, but I've done 4 Seher therapies with Chad and with Napa as well. And with Napa also, it was started by a lady, and she's grown quite a bit, right, Chad? And you haven't. But so how Napa works is they have an annual registration which opens up, say, maybe in August. So on that one day in August, they have booked in all the appointments for the following year.
Right.
So there are that many parents with that many kids that are wanting to do this intensive therapy, but then they are choosing Napa over Chad.
Okay.
And I think like the issues that Chad you had before were like the mums were not happy with his attitude, or, you know, how he's
We push the kids too hard.
pushing them into a guilt trip also, and everything. Whereas at Napa, nobody even like sells you the therapy. Like they're like, you know, if you want the therapy, go register. They don't even like talk about anything or do anything.
Right. And so is it the track record, or what is it that that make them go there?
I think so the business setup is different. So obviously Chad and Bronwyn, when they do the therapy, they are doing the 3 hours. So for example, intensive therapy is 3 hours of therapy per day for 5 days a week for 3 weeks. So that's 45 hours total over the 3-week period. Whereas at Napa, it is the same structure, but each hour is a different therapist.
Right.
So, yeah. And then maybe they feel value for money because you might see a physiotherapist, then you might see an OT, then you might see a speechy.
Right.
So they might feel like, plus it's a different program from what Chad offers.
Right.
It's actually, very similar these days. Now there's more similarity than there is difference. But what Anjali is describing there is that they have the ability to design their therapy. They have the menu and they can choose what they want.
Also, like with Chad, when he both the therapies are intensive, but they're still quite different. So what Chad does is in the 3 hours, he doesn't have like, because he's the therapist with the child. So from beginning,
you've been to both, haven't you, Anjali? You've been to
I've been to both. Yeah. So when Chad is working, or when Bronwyn are working with the kid for 3 hours, you have that continuation. And you know what the child is going through. In the beginning hour, they are, you know, full of energy. By the end, they are tired. So, you know, the last hour, you're not going to get much. But you've got that rapport built up with the kid, and they're comfortable enough with you and everything. Whereas in Napa, you know, the therapist is changing every hour. So I feel like maybe it can go both ways. Like the child is encouraged all the time because, there's that change of pace and there's a breakup, or they might feel like there's a loss of what has been worked on is not being continued or something. But what NAPA does is they actually have a sheet which all the therapists follow. And that sheet has a certain list of exercises. So there's nothing which is customized to your child. It is as per that sheet. Whereas when you do with Bronwyn and Chad, it is completely customized to what they see on that day at that time with your kid, and then they can change it, like, oh, maybe she did something, so let's just try something else because they've done this. Whereas at NAPA it would be like 1 hour, 4 exercises, bang bang bang.
So Anjali, I'm assuming that because you work with Chad, that you think that what you guys do is better than NAPA, yeah?
Probably a combination. Some elements NAPA
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah, like I find obviously with Seher, like my daughter, she's obviously getting better results with Chad. We do NAPA because Chad is not coming to Sydney and it's better to do something than nothing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
But at the same time, I don't feel like I don't feel like they listened to me as a parent. So Chad listens and follows and can see what's happening with the kid because, I know my child, I'm living with them 24/7. So if I say, she can turn left but not right, he can actually see that and do whatever needs to be done with that neck control and everything. Whereas those guys are like, all right, these are my exercises. Let's get on with it.
Yeah.
And then pass you on to the next therapist. Get on with it. Pass you on to the next therapist.
Yeah. Awesome. So the really key things that stand out for me there from that discussion is first of all, there's a huge opportunity for for growth in the business. There's definitely more bums on seats you can get, and the other the other thing is that you've got a great product. Very clearly, you've got you're offering something that people want, which is really, really important. And you guys are passionate about it, so that you've got a real trifecta there of a winning formula. So let's get on to showing you guys how to sell. So I know it's already 7:10 for you. Do you want to?
Trevor, before you do that, one thing as well though, so that's the therapy, which is our key thing that we do.
Yeah.
Then on the back end, there's also some slight variations of whether it be hydro or whether it be weekly sessions, or it might be parent education. But also what Anjali does is on the back end, we train parents so they can do therapy at home, which means we can also then sell them or rent them the equipment they need for the home program.
Awesome.
And now what we're also starting to do, which we've had varying success at selling, is having people that will go to their homes to help them do that, called therapy assistants. So the idea is it becomes quite holistic. Come to us, we'll do the intensive, and then we'll help you with all the stuff on the back end as well, everything from the equipment to the in-home support and stuff.
And when you do a sales call, would you tell them that you could potentially end up spending this massive amount of money for all the additional services, or do you just talk about the service that they're specifically looking for at the time and then add the other services in?
It depends. If people talk about...
I only talk about the therapy.
Yeah.
I don't.
That they first come to. Yeah.
Do you do much stuff with the equipment and stuff, Bronwyn?
I don't like selling equipment.
That's why we're here. That's why we're doing a sales course.
Awesome.
I think also the problem, Chad, is that Trevor, Chad has incorporated the AI AHP thing. Chad and
parent education stuff from back, former. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that you use now, but basically the thing is like it's a American thing on by a doctor who worked with the brain injury kids, and he designed a home program and everything, which does actually work. But in order to do that, you need equipment like parrot bars or the combat crawling
All the
thing.
different things that we sell, yeah, or rent, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, and then also Chad insists on after your 3 weeks of intensive therapy is the home program, which needs to be done daily, 3 times a day, till you come back to him next time forever and ever.
And this is one of the things that and so this is what I've done, and I think that turns a lot of parents off.
I think it's putting too much on the parent. Like,
It does.
I've got 3 kids and I've got like so much to do, and there's
Yeah.
school and housework and everything. And I
Yeah.
mean, I know it's good for my child. It's not that I don't know.
It is. And the reason
I
why-
don't do it, I do feel massive amounts of guilt. And I'm like, oh my God, Chad is going to kill me.
But the
Because Chad doesn't live in the real world where money is a thing and time
No,
and
no.
other kids are a
Hold
thing.
on. Understand where I've come from. Correct. I'm trying to reel myself back in, right? Because it's kind of like when I started doing this, I've been doing this now for 25 years. And when I started, it was like there were people would volunteer and come and help you do therapy at home. Or when I worked in Asia, there were teams of nannies that would help. And so the results the kids got were massively higher in those days because the dosage they got was so much higher, and they needed the equipment, and they did the therapy at home. These days it's becoming less and less. And so what I need to do is it's kind of like I need to slow down and this is where my pressuring things comes from, because I know that physiologically the kid is going to benefit from it, but I need to slow down and meet the parents where they're at.
Yeah.
Not have them be where I want them to be.
Yep. Let me tell you a story about Sean. He probably, I don't know if he'd enjoy me sharing this, but he's done I hope he's okay with it. I'm pretty sure he will be. He's designed this course, a health and well-being course. And I can't remember how many modules there were, but there were dozens of modules. And he was looking at actually selling this off to businesses. And I know at the moment I'm contracted to Fujitsu. I do IT consulting through them, and Fujitsu, we have to meet certain health and safety requirements and good work safety policies and stress management and all those sorts of things. And what they do is they literally go, there's certain things that you need to do in order to meet those requirements. Fujitsu is not going to spend a dime more than they need to in order to meet those requirements. So when I first started working with Sean, I said to him, Sean, instead of doing whatever it was, dozens of modules, are you able to take all of that and compress it down into something that's usable, that'll meet their needs? And maybe you could do like a 45-minute session or a half an hour session for 3 weeks or a month or whatever it might be. That's just an example of and then he would get more buy-in. I mean, if you think about your business, imagine if I said to you, Chad, the sales training is going to take 4 hours a day, 5 days a week for the next 2 months. You know, it would immediately, you'd go like, well, can't you do it a little bit? So you're absolutely right. Like trying to find out what the needs of the parents are and their availability and everything is a really, really big deal, because availability of time, as much as I love my kids with everything I've got, I've also got a limited amount of time. And so that's also something just to keep in mind as well, is we're going to have to meet our client with a product that they want to buy. It's not about what we want to sell. It's about what they want to buy. We're going to get back to this all the time. What do they want to buy? We sell them what they want to buy? And hopefully we can give them a product that makes a huge difference in their lives. Okay, so if we're selling them a product that they want to buy, they're going to buy it. They're definitely going to buy it. Okay, so I just want to run through and just recap just real quickly on some of the reasons why this 5-step sales process is so important. Then what I'm going to do, I'm talking literally 5 minutes here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to those 5 steps. Okay, and then we'll probably call it a day at that point. And then at the next session, which is on Monday night, I'm going to start working our way through those through those 5 steps. So I just want to go through those reasons why this course might be important for you, and it's just really a recap of what we've already discovered. Discussed. I've actually got a PowerPoint that I've got on this side that I'm not really sharing. It's just really for my use, and literally everything that we've discussed so far is on the slide. The reasons why we need to learn to sell. One of them is if we do a whole bunch of work and then they say, send us a brochure, or I'll speak to my husband, or I'll call you back later, or something like that. It's the most gut-wrenching thing for somebody that is looking to close a deal, to have that sort of, for someone to be interested and then not be interested, or give you a very, very weak excuse. One of the things we are going to cover in the 5-step sales process is ways to handle objections. And one of the things that we'll run through is there's actually only 4 objections. There's only ever 4 objections. I don't need it. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. And I can't remember what the 4th one is off the top of my head. But there's only 4 objections every single time. Sorry, I can't remember the 4th one. I can probably just pop to that slide, but we'll cover it. I've got it on my slide. So there's only ever 4 objections. I don't have money. I don't have time. I don't need it. I don't trust you. I don't trust you're going to deliver is the 4th one. Okay, and we need to elicit it to a point. If somebody goes, we're not going to take it, we really need to elicit it to a point that we know which reason they're going to use, because those are just excuses. They're not even valid. Who has not got the time? Who has not got the money? Who hasn't? If they really don't know, if they really don't need your product, they wouldn't be there in the first place, right? I mean, you're not going to get somebody that doesn't need your service coming to inquire about your service. So how you handle those objections is really, really important. Another reason why the sales process is so powerful, I remember Knox City Council in Melbourne. I remember going to do a demonstration there. I'll never forget it till the day that I die. We had a two-day demonstration, 2 full days, longest demonstration I've ever done, and our whole team was there. And we were up against some really, really, really big players in the industry. And I just remember there was this one guy who was in the audience, and every single thing that we said, he just objected to. He was just one of those naysayers. And you may not come across it as much in your industry, but you may. I'm not sure if you would or wouldn't, but certainly I find it in a group environment. There's always that one person that's protecting something that doesn't necessarily want to jump on board. How do you deal with those people? Really, really important. What do you do if time is a big constraint? For example, if you're at a conference and you've only got 5 minutes to speak to someone, I've already spoken to you about not layering too much information in a short period of time. But what if you've only got a short period of time and you need to get as much information out to them as possible? You don't want to waste your time asking all these questions. You just want to get as much information out there as possible. So how do you handle that situation? That's another thing we're going to cover. Another thing we want to try and avoid is you doing a whole bunch of work and then putting it in a proposal to somebody, and then them going to pick up Napa or someone else, whatever. Sorry, excuse if I got that other company wrong. Is it Napa? Did you say? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they're one of our biggest competitors.
So imagine you go and do all the hard work, and then they take your proposal and say, "Can you beat this?" That's the worst thing that you get. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible feeling, and it happens to every business. Every business has it. They would even experience it with you in reverse. You know, like it would happen, right? And then there, obviously, I've spoken already about that feeling of rejection if you get a no. We all try and avoid that. You know, a sales call is very much like trying to pick someone up at a bar. You know, you see them across, you go, I really want to talk to them, but there's that thing that holds you back, the fear of rejection. And as I mentioned earlier, psychologists do believe that sometimes when you, or that feeling that you get where you're afraid to ask for a sale is very similar to the feeling of asking for money from somebody. We all know how precious and valuable money is to us, and there's that element of fear that sort of comes up when we do that. But we're going to work our way through that as well, because we're no longer going to sell. They're going to buy. Very, very different. Very different. We're never going to sell again in our lives. How cool is that? All right. And of course, we don't like to be sold to. I've already spoken about that one. One of the things that you'll also be able to do once you manage to establish real value for your product is you'll be able to sell it at a higher price. So that's something that I'm going to talk to you about. And then, of course, the very last one, which is really, really important, is if you know how to sell, from an individual perspective, it gives you more confidence. You become more valuable to your organization and to your peers, and your business becomes more valuable. So it's very important, you know, and you have the ability to grow this business and scale it bigger than you ever expected if you know how to sell properly. Okay. If you don't, it's always going to feel like hard work. It's going to be hit and miss. You're going to look like an amateur. And you're basically just pouring money down the drain, chasing leads that may or may not eventuate. So there's your pros and there's your cons. It's really, really worth learning this. Okay, cool. So now I'm just going to quickly give you the 5 steps. And for the first time, I'm going to quickly flip my screen and share my screen with you, because there's something quite important I want to show you. This is the very last slide. It's only going to take a couple of minutes, okay? How do I share my screen? Here we go. Which one? Here we go. Tell me if you can see that. Okay. Yep, so these are the 5 steps. The first step is to establish rapport. Okay, so establishing a rapport is literally just making them feel safe. Making them feel safe. Okay, you don't need to take notes on this. Don't worry, we're going to go through all of this in a lot of detail, and I'm going to tell you a story of how you can make people feel safe. There's something that's actually happened in our training already. You know, right at the beginning when I was vulnerable about how frustrated I felt when I didn't get those deals and I didn't manage to close them. And did you notice that there's common experience that's shared back in return? That's the stuff that you use to build rapport. I love using being vulnerable with the clients up front. You know, I used to have this problem and this is how I managed to solve it, you know, and I remember feeling so frustrated. I didn't know how to sell. You know, and it was all hit and miss, and, you know, and other people will have common experience. There's a lot of, you know, when comedians stand up on stage, they sell universal experiences that we all experience. That's how they get a laugh out of the audience. They literally have to go, well, a lot of people are obviously experiencing the same thing in life as I do. And that's how they get, so we all have these universal experiences that frustrate us. So we'll talk about establishing rapport, and I'm going to give you my way of doing it because it works very, very, very well and totally outside of anyone's awareness. They think you're just telling them a story. The next thing is to ask questions. Now, it's not asking questions that's powerful. It's asking the right questions that's powerful. Right? So I'm going to tell you what sort of questions you need to ask. because nobody wants to feel like they are being interrogated, or because if somebody comes to me and they just start rattling off questions without having rapport, and if the questions don't really make sense and it sounds like you're just being sold to, that's just going to put people off as well. So what sort of questions can you ask? And I'm going to introduce you to a little word called curiosity, because really being curious about other people's experience is more powerful in selling than anything that you'll ever say to them, any information you give them. If you are curious, tell me about what your child's experiencing. I really understand. That must be really, really hard for you. I get that. Do you know, I've had a similar client that's had that exact experience. That is going to be more powerful for you than how you're going to go about it. Or by the end of it, people will just want to buy. Okay. So these are the things really, really important for us to ask the right questions. Then what we're going to do is, using the answers from those questions, we're going to identify value, and we're going to link the value to our product. Now, what I'm saying by this is, if they say, I've got this problem, I need my car in blue, you don't go and tell them, this car that I'm selling you has got this feature and this feature and this feature. It's irrelevant. They want it in blue. Do you understand what I'm saying? You really have to get to what it is that they're looking for. That is your value. Sell them that. That's all that they come there to buy. Everything else is just information that you feel like you need to regurgitate because you're the expert in the field. But you don't need to, because the more information you give them, the more opportunity there is for them to resist. The more information you give them, for example, if they say, I want the car in blue, and you go, not only have I got it in blue, but let me tell you what, this thing's got 19-inch rims, and it's got this media center, and it's got this sunroof, and you've already sold them on the fact that you got it in blue. You don't need all that other stuff. Then they might go, oh, I didn't actually want a sunroof. Oh, I didn't even realize it had one. Maybe I'll go and look somewhere else. So only give them enough information to get the sale done. Then we're going to talk about handling objections. How do we handle objections? I already mentioned that there's only 4 objections almost ever. Don't have time, I don't have money, I don't need the product, I don't trust you. Those are literally the 4. They're never going to say to you, I don't trust you. They're going to think it, but they're never going to say that to you. I don't need it. They're almost never going to say, I don't need it. But I don't have time and I don't have money come up quite frequently. And you know how you'll find out that there's an objection? They'll say, I'll speak to my husband, send me a brochure, I'll get back to you. There's your cue. And then you go, oh, here's an objection. Right, so what is the objection? Because if you really think about it, your product is literally going to give them more time. It is going to give them more money. Even if it is helping their child, it's going to free them up to be able to do more with their lives. And they obviously need your product. That's probably a stretch, but you get what I'm saying? The very reason why they come there is now the objections that they're going back to you with. Okay, so we're going to work our way through how to answer those specific objections, and then close. And then you close. That's when you ask for the sale. Okay, there are lots of different ways to ask for a sale. One of them is you can say, "Do you want it? When would you like to get started?" I don't like to be pushy with a sale, but you have to ask for the sale before they leave. Okay, and so I'm going to give you a few methods to actually ask for the sale that aren't intimidating, that don't push them, put them off. Okay, and we also, a lot of the time when you try and close the deal, is when you'll find out what their objections are. because they might, until that point, they might go, oh, this is interesting. Oh, yeah, very, very interesting, very interesting. And then you ask for the sale and they go, oh, whoa, 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 hold on. And then you go back to handling objections. So what happens when those objections come up is you recycle again through, because you already, if you've done this process right, you can remind them about what the value is, because you already know their biggest problem. You can always just go to them and say, but you said to me that this was such a big problem for you. And you can cycle back to it and you say, do you not see value? Or if we manage to solve that problem for you, what would that be worth to you? You know, there are ways that you can cycle back to this, but you have to establish that value first. If you haven't established the value, you've got nothing to go back to. You're just regurgitating information and hoping that something lands, right? So that's a bit of an overview. Now, the reason why I shared my screen here is I just want to point out to you, number one, establishing rapport is a process of listening. Asking questions is a process of listening. Identifying value and linking it to your product. This is when you have your opportunity to talk. This is when you have a mouth. Handling objections, listening. What is it that they're objecting to? What are the reasons behind it? Now, I don't want to give too much away, but one of the things that you've got to learn to do is to get those objections out while they're in front of you, because if they have any reason why they're not going to buy, they will try and hide it from you. Give me a brochure, I'll speak to the husband, I'll get back to you, all of those sorts of things. And generally, because we don't want to rock the boat, we go, oh, okay, fine. Yeah, there's your brochure. Yeah, go and speak to your husband. Yeah, you know, but this is our opportunity to listen. It's our opportunity to listen. Be curious. What is the reason why you haven't decided to go with this? It's all about curiosity, but genuine curiosity. It's not just tell me why you don't want to take it. You know, we don't want to be forceful about it. Okay. And then of course the closing is another opportunity to listen. Would you like to go ahead with it? Would you, how would it best suit for you within your schedule, within your time frame, within what your child can cope with? What plan would work best for you? How can we tailor that to make this work for you? Those are really, really good closing statements. Okay. And then of course, in all of that, we're going to look for buyer signs as well, because there'll be buyer signs that'll come through as well. Okay, so that's a 5-step sales process in a nutshell. So what we're going to do is on Monday night, I've taken a little bit longer than expected, I apologize, but on Monday and Tuesday, on Monday, we're going to work through number 1 and number 2. We're going to go through establishing rapport, and we're going to ask questions. And I'm just going to layer this information in. We might even do identifying value on Monday as well. But I just want to layer this information in, not give you too much. I want you to be manageable, and I want it to be very, very practical. I want you to walk away with this and just feel a real sense of knowing how to do this. Okay, so that's me and my chit chat done for the evening. Do you have any questions, or is there anything you'd like to feed back to me, anything you'd like me to add, or anything you want to share? Now's the time.
I just want to say one thing. I totally understand like the double back and like figure out the why. When we go over that, I love you, Chad, but I think that's something Chad needs to focus on, because he does double back. He does try to figure out the why, and he does try to figure out how to fix the why there, then and there, then there and there. Oh God, too many there's. But sometimes it just, I think that's where it goes wrong with Chad. Now that you've said it that way, I was like, actually, you know what? That's probably where it goes wrong for Chad. It's if there's even a slight inkling of doubt, Chad picks up on it and he's like, no, this is going to be amazing for your kid. You've got to do it. And he doubles back and he's sort of like, tries to solve it all, but then oversells it and then
Yeah.
And
puts
Chad,
guilt on.
Chad, here's the-
You need to talk to your husband. I can't. Don't worry about your husband. You know, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
So Chad, can you imagine how much more powerful it'll be if you go back with their words?
Yep.
You go back with their words. If they say to you, and I apologize, I don't know anything about remediation for children, but if you go back, if they say to you, my child is behaving in a certain way, and literally the words that they use, you go, remember you told me that your child's behaving in this way. Feeding their words back to them, not your words, your words. And any objections, always going back, you have to establish value. If you don't establish value, you've got nothing to go back to. Nothing.
Yeah.
And that's that's the bit that everybody misses in the sales process, is that salespeople are listeners, they're not talkers. We have to listen way more than we talk. And they feel special. They feel like they're the only person in the room. You know those people that just make you like you've known them for 100 years. The people that you've known, where you just go, I can't believe I've only known you for 5 minutes. It feels like I've known you forever. That's a feeling that you get inside. And the feeling that you get inside is understanding someone, understanding their vulnerabilities, understanding what they're going through, whether they're buying a car, whether they're buying, like I say, you guys have got the golden gem of everything being tied into emotion. And people buy on emotion. Now, I'm not saying you manipulate their emotions, but I can gather from the audience that we have here that everybody empathizes with the parents that come in with an issue. I can see that. And expressing that and just having a genuine curiosity rather than going in and going, oh, I know exactly what you need. Worst thing you can do. So going in and going, what is it that you need? What, as a parent, you'd know. Tell me everything that you, and you are doing a lot of this already, Chad. You're doing this incredibly well. I think getting that link between establishing value and really pinging on what is valuable for the client. What are they looking to buy rather than what are you looking to sell? That's the important bit. Yep. Because when you give them a million things that they could potentially buy, they'll find excuses why 99 of those, or out of 100, they'll find 99 of them. I didn't really want that. I didn't really want that. Maybe. Oh, that sounds nice. You know, but, and then you lose that one thing that they really, really wanted. Okay. So we're just going to hone our skills and really listen to the client. I can tell you guys 100% that I used to do exactly the same thing. There's no shame in it. There's absolutely no shame in it. It is how we normally sell, right? So this is just next level for you. And what we're going to do is we're just going to make you so comfortable with just asking the right questions. Next time you can take some awesome notes as well. And of course you can continue recording me as much as you want to. I have no problem with that. The questions that you ask are going to be so valuable. You know, one of them that I ask quite frequently when I go in, I absolutely love this question. What is the biggest problem that you have right now that if we were to sell it would make this the most important call of your lives? We'll go through that next time. I mean, it just sounds like something, doesn't it? It's like, yeah, and immediately you go, oh, yeah, I do have a big problem. It brings it into their awareness. Okay, so these are the sorts of things that we're going to talk about next time. And I really hope that you guys get so much value out of this. I can't wait to see the results. I believe you've got a conference coming up soon as well. So practice. It's going to be awesome. Just practice. Okay. You may not get it right every single time, and there might be times that you go, oh, I slipped up on that. But just again, there's only 5 steps. There's only 5. Okay. The establishing rapport sounds like you guys are getting that right anyway. I'm just going to give you another little way of doing it. I actually did it at the beginning anyway, you know, when I went, you know, this is me, this is who I am, this is how frustrated I was. I love using that method. It works very, very well. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. And I will see you guys on Monday evening. I believe it's at 6:30 your time on Monday. Something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Any last comments? No? Awesome. All right. I'll see you guys on Monday.
All right, guys.
Amazing. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Trevor.
Bye.
Bye.